Raymond Ito, taking you through the day's biggest political news stories and events making the rounds across Nigeria to seal the rifts between apparent political factions in the state in his Easter Day message to residents. Address the issue around national unity and attacks ahead of the incoming administration of president-elect prayers that have been pushed through in court by the losing parties of the just concluded general elections. So nice to have you join us. The state, despite their political affiliations, well, the governor who stated this yesterday in a broadcast message to the people of the state to mark the Easter celebration, join hands with the incoming administration to consolidate on the achievements recorded by successive administrations in the state. Well, he's come to the state, which Pastor Moina of the People's Democratic Party won. A governing manual issued for peace among political parties in the state. But just yet, we haven't seen or heard about moves being made by opponents here in the state as to whether they would love to challenge allegations threatening to wrestle the candidacy of the People's Democratic Party from him. But he somewhat scaled through all those than he met it when he first came on board in 2015. It's a statement that has generated controversy in the state, with opinion largely divided on whether or not Moina will likely do better than his administration. And so he has called on all factions to join hands to work together for the betterment of the state. As sitting in Abuja to dismiss the petition filed by the Labour Party and its presidential candidate, Peter Obi, against the emergence of Senator Bola Ahmed Tinubu as president-elect in the February 25 election. But the APC at the PEPC Secretariat yesterday by Thomas Ojo, who was a member of the party's legal team, led by Lateef Fagbemi in Abuja. But the party opts to dismiss the suit on the grounds that Obi, who is the first petitioner, lacked the requisite locus standi to institute the petition validly sponsored by the party. And the APC equally argued that the petition was improperly constituted, having failed to join a town. It's important to note that the petitioners, in this case, Peter Obi and the Labour Party, are seeking the nullification of the presidential election following based on the uploaded results on INEC's IREV. Now, Obi and the Labour Party also said INEC violated its own regulation and uploaded as well as transmitted electronically as required by the Electoral Act. But we know they refused to transmit results electronically as was provided by the Electoral Act. Well, INEC's position proposal were surely cases that will likely come up in the post-election litigations ongoing across the country, amounting to over the last in the face-off between the APC, the Labour Party, and perhaps the PDP in the aftermath of these elections may not have been concluded just yet. And culture, Lai Mohammed to order for spreading fake news about the Labour Party candidates Peter Obi. In a statement yesterday, Clark, who was reacting to Lai Mohammed's recent media outing in the United States agencies, but rather on propaganda and falsity. He said rather than mention the names of those who have been raising the coup game, well, the Jaw leader added that utterances of the minister in the last 8 years have tended to cause division in the country, rather than the interface between Lai Mohammed and the international media in Washington, D.C. a couple of weeks ago, where he spoke sternly about the plot to install an internally hinged on the possible transmission of power from President Buhari to President-elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Well, Lai Mohammed did not stop at that. He hinged and fingered Mr. Peter Obi of the Labour Party. Have been linked or connected to a purported audio that was leaked sometime last week, which showed reportedly showed Mr. Peter Obi clamoring for support and votes from the leader that Mr. Peter Obi himself has come out to deny, perhaps informs the choice why the APC or its spokespersons may have played that reasonable offense. Well, we've not seen the last of this for sure. We'll keep on monitoring this development and bring you up to speed with them as we progress. Let's turn to Good-led Progressives Governors Forum may have settled for the choice of Senator Osita Ezunaso as the preferred choice for the seat of the Senate President. Now, the move by the in Imo West Senatorial District is best suited to occupy the exalted seat. Now, the move comes on the and also used the occasion to express interest in seeking the top leadership position in the Senate. Well, he's dotted on the fact that his service and commitment level to the APC during the campaigning were top-notch, having served as the director of the Presidential Campaign Council, Contact and Mobilization for Southeast for the 2023 also set to be disposed to having Izunaso, who also served as the National Organizing Secretary of the APC between 2015 and 2019 at his geopolitical zone, as part of an effort to ensure an even and fair distribution of leadership positions in the politics of the next Senate President would be. A lot of names have come up, including former Senate Minority Leader and former Governor of Akwa Ibom State, so former Abia State Governor and current Senate Chief Whip Ozjuz Okalu had also thrown his hat into the ring and even went further to claim that it was his turn to be Senate President. Well, the Southeast has produced the top job in the Senate over the years. So will it be fair to zone this position assembly? Again, sort of matters that you say opinion is divided, because while it looks like the politicking, the lobbying be required, especially as it concerns interfacing with other members of the National Assembly from other political parties in some senatorial districts and National Assembly seats overall across the country, most of which will come on April 15. So if that's the case, have a clean sweep in terms of determining who they want to become the Senate President. Surely, very surely, other parties would have to also garner their support in determining who you want as Senate President. And some have already posited, and the picture is clear, that this could be the most polarized National Assembly in recent history, because let's turn our sights to Lagos State now, where the People's Democratic Party, PDP, and its governorship candidate, Abdulaziz Adeniran, also known as Jando, of Progressives Congress, APC, in the recently concluded gubernatorial elections for non-compliance with the Electoral Act of 2022. Now, of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. Now, while INEC is the first respondent, Governor and the Labour Party governorship candidate, Badebo Rhodes Viva, are the second, third, fourth, and fifth, as well as sixth respondents in the matter petition, claim that at the time of the gubernatorial elections held on March 18, Governor Sanwo-Olu, his deputy Hamzat, as well as Rhodes Viva were not qualified. Recall that Sanwo-Olu had defeated 15 other contestants from different parties to emerge the winner of the governorship election. But what is left to be seen is PDP and Jando in this matter, considering we've seen instances where the court has maintained that as far as putting forward the names of candidates for political tour, Senator Godswill Akpabio displaced the likes of DIG Ekbodum from his position, or in the gubernatorial elections in the party's ticket, even though some argued he only just defected from the PDP to join the APC. The court's position there was clear. The Labour Party, rather the PDP candidates in Lagos State, arguing that Viva Rhodes and Governor Sanwo-Olu were not the APC and the Labour Party in Lagos, respectively. And as long as none of them has come out to say otherwise, it's looking very likely that this matter could be thrown out of court. Census, where the Federal Commissioner of the National Population Commission in Zamfara, Muhammadu Rini, said that did this while speaking with newsmen in Gusau yesterday. Noted that the digital census will aid sensitization and enlightenment for the 2023 population and housing census. Gusau noted that one of the risks, not just in the states but across the country, and he called on people, especially stakeholders, to support the commission to ensure a month away from now, and Nigerians will be watching this one very keenly. Hopefully we don't get to see just about this as it prepares for a census that could have huge implications for Nigeria going forward, especially on allocation and budget concerns, what each state is likely to get. All of this will be premised on the figures, but of national unity and the tax ahead for the incoming administration of President-elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu, or any government for that.
shaping its own destiny and should be referred to as the African opportunity. On Spotlight Africa, TPM, Spotlight Africa, telling the African story.
Every society is premised on the conversations thrive and how long they stick together. Join Uyai Anyeken on Connect every Wednesday for conversations, interviews, real stories, and how to navigate relationships and family life in the 20th.
Business exists only to meet the needs of the people. But for your competitors, for your desired return on investment and SOCI of 12733, Spectrum Television, broadening your horizon.
Channel 421, and you can also follow us on all of our socials, especially our YouTube, the Buhari administration, which is of course expected to kick off from May 29, where the post-election concerns that have dominated the aftermath of the just concluded elections has been the one question. Elections divided Nigerians more than it was expected. So here's the big task ahead for the incumbent administration when posed a question about whether he would favor the unity of the country in terms of school appointments and what have you. Well, he has said competence over through the federal appointment as well as allocation, especially if you have to drive through the frontiers of development, as is the hope of most Nigerians. Have been riddled to a great extent of nepotism and appointment that has been made. And even when he has stuck to his guts in determining who he wants to brought to bear throughout the span of its stay in power, and this could have informed why Bola Tinubu. But the subject of national unity is of course key, considering the nation appears very divided. Post-election litigations in court as we speak, especially as it concerns the February Buhari in office. The question is, will it be President-elect Bola Tinubu? Well, someone just has to succeed Mr. President, but the new president will like, which seems to be the icing on the cake. The other underlying our elites, and we know it has led to a face-off even between the government and some political, and claimed that the Labour Party presidential candidate Peter Obi is actually that supporters and followers of Mr. Peter Obi and the Labour Party would not take such messages to heart. We've also seen this argument and conversation spiral into different spheres. He made some rather uncomfortable remarks about the obedience, which are the followers of Soyinka, sort of getting the hot sticks from the supporters of the Labour Party president necessarily. And some of us appear to have given Professor Soyinka a pat on the back when last week he said the presidential concerns surrounding the just concluded elections. But these are things you would likely see, especially in this as president-elect. But here's the big question, the task before the incoming administration. How do you go around to see victors at the end of elections come out to say, the polls are over, the message, how far do it's hardly ever seen. If we have to history around the 1999 polls that saw the emergence of Demchin that we were having since the annulled one in 1993, which of course itself, El Shagari, begging your pardon, as president. So how much of an opposition, the sigh of relief that the army was returning to the barracks and we have the different factions across the country, except it would say the political face-off it had with Bola Ahmed to try to reclaim mandates they feel they lost in court. And that in some way, through with programs and policies that they had, of course, briefed Obasanjo then defeated Buhari to come of that post. In 2007, it appeared to have taken an even worse of asking. President Buhari wasn't a president then, of course, did have to it because of his death nearly 3 years in. Have enough time to address the burgeoning concerns we saw in different parts of the country. Well, from the 2000 active President Goodluck Jonathan to be sworn into office, that led to a change in shift and the paradigm of the political, that perhaps this is what instigated from 1999 up until today. The crisis surrounding Boko Haram, the Boko Haram group, the late Mohammed, who was killed by Boko Haram, history had told us was that they were a group that so much so that they left the country in shambles. The fact that the North did not complete its tenure on the late Umaru Musa Yar'Adua, it appears that a lot of factors were ganging up against him. And even up until date, 1999, up until date, explains why 14 they have said we need to balance it as well by having another northern. These issues tend to arise post-election, decided to chart a new course forward in terms of how we play politics in the country. Decide that, look, the elections are over. Let's not cry over spill. It was a reawakening of the political consciousness of Nigerians and how we can adapt to the demands of a country or a state. But it looks like we beginning from 2015 precisely. So how do I want to be in my shoes, but I'm here now. We need to join hands together to move the country forward. Only be one winner, and then there has to be losers as well. But the language with I'm here now, so you have no choice than to support me. Well, post-election litigations that we're having, numbering over 100, according to the figures INEC gave us shortly as not, means we're going to have prolonged court cases emphasized by some. Aside just sealing the rift between political factions, we've talked about the small matter of ethnicity by the likes of Lai Mohammed, who fingered Mr. Peter Obi for making inciting comments if claims himself from the purported leaked audio and said it wasn't the one in that audio. His mandate, so much so that he has said he's under pressure to leave the country more than he could have bargained for in the aftermath of his power from President Buhari to President-elect Bola Tinubu. But how do you go around to distract him from the real task? And the task here is to develop Nigeria. It doesn't matter who is there as president and the nation's #1 citizen and a mandate to deliver on promises made pre-elections. So how will they sit down? We could pretend for all we want, but there is a religious undertone already attached to the aftermath of this election before the first votes were cast. We're already having religious, discussion. If eventually it is proven that that was indeed Mr. Peter Obi clamoring for support from Peter Obi had spoken out of turn or crossed a line by, he should be charged for treasonable, further than that, except of course the government but it doesn't look like they've been caught in connivance with the Nigerian army. So it had a scoop, and so he had to bring it to the Lai Mohammed now claimed that Mr. Peter Obi was making inside. Kashim Shettima has also been fingered second comment that you would summarize to mean inciting comment. So, interrogation. So it tells you that there seems to be a selective moves to supporters of these faces, knowing the kind of followership that they command across the country, and then it's cost. But just underline just how important or the big role that the incoming administration has to play to manage to stay as one indivisible entity. Perhaps since independence, in spite of the fact that we've had terrorist attacks from Boko Haram, ISWAP, banditry, and several other security devices you can name, the country seems to still stay on as one. And we've had Nigerians have shown that in spite of all this fracas, they can actually stay on as one country, but some of which constitutionally provided. And that's why the constitution of the country doesn't permit for the states to operate that you want. So it explains why there was massive opposition to the APC's choice of fielding agents vie for political offices. It's not stipulated as mandatory understanding that has kept the country going forward. And it all started with the issues around zoning, and now we're talking about the religious under. That's one thing that has been provided for by the Constitution, that says political positions and appointments should be shared equally. This is to say that Bola Tinubu would likely favor giving out political positions to people from one state as the development thrive, and of course the country progresses. But what sense would it make if you have to ignore political scores or loyalists who had supported you in the bid to get into where you are today and forms? Well, it's a very, very large issue that perhaps even time may not allow us to explore thoroughly. The period of the Buhari administration has been, characterized largely by issues of nepotism, with the issue of insecurity in the country. Even though we've had a bulk of the service chiefs emanates from one region, we have another opportunity to come up on behalf. But we have to draw the curtains here on today's edition of Political. But do also stick around. Blyden the Camp will be up next in a matter of minutes with Business 360. Found out. Bye for now.